Atomic structure. Table of contents. Matter and element, subatomic structure, chemical bonding, and let's review. What are we made of? In science, we say living organisms such as humans or animals are composed of matter. But what is matter? Matter is anything that occupies space and mass, which is weight. It is also composed of chemical elements. But what is an element? Element is a substance that cannot be broken down to other substances. Examples of carbon, hydrogen, or oxygen. Compounds are substances consisting of two or more different elements in a fixed ratio, such as H2O, water, and CO2, carbon dioxide. These are 2 to 1 or 1 to 2 specific ratios. 25 elements are essential to life. 4 elements that make up most weight of living organisms are oxygen, carbon, hydrogen, and nitrogen. There's also trace elements. They only consist of 4% in our body, but they're essential and needed in minute and small quantities. Now, trace elements prevent diseases. For example, iron, which is Fe, makes oxygen transport in our body. Once we would have got cut in the paper. Then when we taste it, it feels like iron taste or strange taste. That's because iron has oxygen. That's why if there's no iron, then there's no transporting oxygen, which can lead to serious problems. Another example is iodine deficiency. If it doesn't produce thyroid hormones, which is hormones from our neck, it might lead to goiter. This is an example of a goiter. Goiter is neck being swallowed. Subatomic structure. Each element has one type of atom. Atom is the smallest unit of matter. It retains or keeps properties of an element. There are 3 subatomic particles in atoms which are similar to properties of elements. Now, protons, positively charged, P for positive, and electrons are opposite from protons. They have negative charge, so plus and minus. But for neutrons, they are electrically neutral, which means they have zero or neutral charge. Neutrons and protons are packed in atom's nucleus like this. Here's neutron and here's proton. This is the nucleus. Therefore, we can see that protons and neutrons are inside the big nucleus. Electrons orbit around the nucleus like this. The negative charge of electrons and positive charge of protons keep electrons near nucleus, like these. Three subatomic particles, protons, neutrons, and electrons, but only electrons are directly involved in chemical activity. Electrons occur in energy levels, also known as electron shells. These are information about distribution of electrons, and they're in periodic table of elements. You might have seen this photo a lot. This is a periodic table. Let's look at lithium. There's a nucleus, and there's one electron. Now this is electron shell. This shows energy level in the electron. Therefore, if there's more electron shells, that means it has more energy levels. And we can see this in periodic table as going this way and going downwards. You can see that the electron shell is getting bigger and bigger, and going from left to right, there are more electrons on the outside. Therefore, we can know energy levels. Chemical bonding. Atoms with incomplete outer shells, they react and both atoms have completed outer shells. Let's say there's an A atom and there's a B atom. There's only one electron, and here there's 7. So there's only one electron and 7 electrons. This is just a symbol for electron. But for A atom to become fully charged, it needs to gain 7. And for B to become completely charged, it needs to gain 1 electron. Which one is more easier, getting 7 electrons or getting 1 electron? Of course, getting 1 electron is easier. Therefore, atom A gives electron to atom B. Atom A shared or donated 1 electron, so it lost 1 electron. And for atom B, it received or got an electron. By these interactions, atoms become close because if atoms are too far, it is harder for them to interact. Therefore, they stay close so that they can interact well. And these attractions are called chemical bonding. Chemical bond is the strongest kind of bond. Two atoms share one or more outer shell electrons, and two or more atoms held together by covalent bonds are called molecules. Now, water and methane, carbon dioxide are all molecules because two or more atoms, like this, these, are held together. Atoms in a covalently bonded molecule compete for shared electron. Electronegativity as attraction or pull for shared electrons. You might think of electronegativity as the force of pulling, and if there's more electronegative atoms, then it pulls harder. Let's say there's atom A, and then atom A2. A1 got A1 pulls A2 to itself in electronegativity or force of 5, and A2 pulled A1 in the force of 5. Then this electronegativity or force is same. Then what do we call this? Now we call this as nonpolar covalent bonds because molecules of one element and they pull toward each atom is same. Now, what if there's different electronegativities? Well, we call these polar covalent bonds. One example is H2O, water. Now, oxygen attracts shared electrons more than hydrogen. Let's say O has an electronegativity of 8, and each of hydrogen has electronegativity of 2. Then oxygens share more electrons than hydrogen because these are all electrons and then they're closer to the oxygen rather than hydrogen. And shared electrons spend more time near oxygen, so electrons go toward oxygen. Then oxygen atom gets negative charge and each hydrogen atoms become positively charged. Now these are called polar covalent bonds, and one of the most famous example is the water, also known as H2O. Ion. Ion is atom or molecule with electrical charge. It When when electron is lost, it gets plus, and when electron is gained, it gains minus. You might wonder why, but that's because electron is negatively charged. Therefore, if there were two, if the atom was like this, it stays neutral. But when it loses an electron, it becomes positive. But if it gains one electron from the outside, it becomes negatively charged because there's more electrons than protons. Two ions with opposite charges attract, and ionic bond is attraction holding ions. Salt is a synonym for ionic compound. Now this is a salt. Na has only one electron, and Cl has about 7 electrons. For Na to become fully charged, it needs to gain 7 electrons, and for Cl to become fully charged, it needs to get only 1. Then it's easier for Cl to just gain 1 electron rather than Na gaining 7 of them. Therefore, Na gives electron to Cl. Then we can say that Na lost 1 electron and Cl gained 1 electron. Therefore, Na got positively charged and Cl got negatively charged as it gains 1. This process is called ionic compounds, and salt is a famous example of it. Now, what is an element? Element is a substance that cannot be broken down to other substances. And what are the four elements that make up the most weight in organisms? Those are oxygen, carbon, hydrogen, and nitrogen. What is electronegativity? It is attraction or pull for shared electrons. For short, just pull force of electrons. What are the two types of covalent bonds? There's polar and nonpolar. What are the differences between polar and nonpolar? Nonpolar is same electronegativity, and polar is different electronegativity. Now here's an atom. Here's the nucleus. There's protons and neutrons. There's also an electron. And we call this outer shell. And this showed the energy. There's chemical bonds. There was ionic bonds, and there was covalent bonds. Ionic bond is first donating or sharing, and second also receiving. Example is A and B. It has 1 electron and 7 electrons on the outer shell. Then it gives or donates 1 electron to B, therefore it receives. This was ionic bonding. And covalent bonds, there's polar and nonpolar. Polar is in different electronegativities. And nonpolar was the same electronegativity. Electronegativity was the force of pulling electrons. There were also trace elements. These were elements that had less percentage in our body but were crucial. Examples were iron and goiter.